Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming to listen. Tonight I have a story. This is a story about why you should be afraid of the dark. This is called The People in the Walls. As a child growing up, I used to hate the dark. I hated the dark because I couldn't see what was coming for me. Everyone always tells you not to be afraid of the dark. But now I know better. And I have a story that might change your mind. My story starts like this. I used to have a babysitter when I was younger, like a lot of you did. She will remain nameless. My babysitter used to always put me to sleep with the same warning. She would always warn me about the people in the walls, and how if I let them get close enough, they would grab me, and I would never be seen from ever again. Then she would say to me, not to be afraid because they could smell my fear, and it would make them hungrier. Every night, I moved my bed to the center of the room and slept with the covers over my head in hopes that they could never reach me in the middle of the night. And every morning, my mother would yell at me and move my bed back against the wall. She clearly didn't understand that the walls were trying to eat me. I always wondered if they were in the floors and the ceilings too, and how come they only came out in the dark. One day, or I should say evening, my babysitter just disappeared. No one knew where. Just as she had left me all alone in the house while I was sleeping. I had often overheard rumors from the adults that she may have just run away with a boy, but nobody really knew for sure. We just knew that she wasn't there when my parents came home the next day. Years after we moved out of the house, I guess there was a missing person report. A husband reported that his wife had just disappeared one day from that house. As time went on, the case remained cold until they started to suspect the husband of suspicious behavior. They believed he might have a possible murder on their hands. Still, they couldn't find any clues leading towards the whereabouts of the body. One day, the police received an anonymous phone call telling them to check the house. It was an odd phone call, and then they just hung up. They eventually were able to acquire enough evidence to request a warrant to search the house. Once inside, they must have found evidence leading them to believe that the body was buried somewhere within the walls of the house. The police investigated further. They ripped apart all of the walls. They ripped apart every floorboard, finding body after body after body. Although only one of those bodies really ever concerned me, and it shook me to my very core. They found my missing babysitter from years ago in the walls. To this day, I'm just as confused as you are now as to what really happened in that house. I remember just being so very grateful that we moved on and made it out of the house, and that I'm alive today to tell you this tale. So yes, you should be afraid of the dark. You never know what's coming to get you. Welcome, and thank you for dropping by. Please sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. Although I must warn you, this is a scary story, and as far as I know, very, very real. It starts years ago. I grew up in a place not too far away from a little town called Stull. Growing up, everyone had heard the same rumors of the evils of Stull. And many of us became curious from the stories, so we traveled to the cemetery to experience it firsthand. People who made the midnight trips to the cemetery had fallen victim to very mysterious events. Many had reported experiencing missing time, and some people just disappeared. It was a very small town with only a handful of residents and a few buildings. What was strange was that Stull's tiny town had counted very few residents since it was originally founded in 1856. It was almost like nobody wanted to live there. Or maybe they just kept disappearing. Nobody knows. Stull seems like a quiet, uneventful place. However, if you believe the stories, and I do, you will find that Stull is as far from a peaceful town as one can get. The reason is because Stull, Kansas is actually one of the 7 gateways to hell. Throughout history, Stull, Kansas has long been a place of mysterious deaths and associations with the Dark Prince himself. There have been a few strange events that reinforce this long reputation of being cursed. Some of these incidents occurred near a road known as the Devil's Road. This road appears on old maps of Stull, although it no longer exists today. But one of the most important legends is that the church serves as one of the 7 portals to hell. The devil reportedly makes a personal appearance at midnight on Halloween night. He visits a witch's grave with whom they shared a child. The child has been spotted in surrounding woods, taking the form of a werewolf. Within the tiny, dilapidated cemetery is a set of hidden steps. The steps descend directly into the netherworld itself. The steps are hidden very well with reason, covered by a hidden seal which only opens up on Halloween and on the spring equinox. If you should ever manage to discover these steps, I would advise that you do not venture down them, or you may never return. There are many rumors that the staircase is behind the church on the right-hand side if you are facing it. The staircase is difficult to find because grass has overgrown the lid that covers the stairwell. It took me and my friends over 6 hours to find. The stairs are supposed to lead to the gateway of hell. Rumor has it that after starting to descend the stairs, it feels like you are being dragged down by an unknown force. What's at the bottom, I'll never tell. Even if I did, you wouldn't believe me. This is something you must see for yourself. If you are brave enough and fearless, then I dare you to camp out behind the church on Halloween night on the threshold of hell. If you choose to attempt to do this, then do so behind the church to avoid the local police. Patrols occur every hour or two. Don't forget to bring warm clothes, a flashlight, and plenty of batteries. As you will find out, you will have many troubles with your flashlight. Trust me, I know. And make sure you tell a friend or bring one, just in case. The entire cemetery is cold, and you can feel the evil wash over you. The main focus of this evil is a crumbling church that stood up until last year. The church used to be used by witches and occult groups for worship, and possibly still is. Even though the church had no ceiling, it was said that the rain would never fall inside. If you took 2 bottles and held them in the formation of an inverted cross, it would be impossible to break them against the walls of the church. One day last year, someone mysteriously bulldozed down the church without the owner's consent. No one knows for sure why they knocked it down. They just did. Also, there was an ancient pine tree known as the hanging tree. On sunny winter days, a silhouette would appear at sunset. You wouldn't be able to miss this tree. A tombstone had been split by the enormous trunk and has become embedded in the roots. Tales of a witch being hung from the pine branches have been passed down through generations to generations. Other witches have gathered to the cemetery on May Day Eve and Halloween to hold black masses. The witches have been known to dance around the tree on October 30th. The hanging tree that had previously loomed over the cemetery was also cut down to stop people from visiting. Local legend tells that the tree was used to hang witches before someone allotted the land as a memorial ground. Both the church and the tree were considered landmarks of evil. These landmarks were supposed to be leading to the mystical steps of hell located nearby. Mysterious people still guard against disturbances to this day. There are so many stories of people being terrorized and chased out of Stull by pickup trucks. Some people have even reported that these trucks have trailed their vehicles for miles. This makes people wonder, what are they trying to hide? So as a warning to you and everyone, be careful when you enter the devil's playground. you might not like what you find if you survive it. To this day, new graves continue to be dug, despite signs warning against trespassers, perhaps referring to the Prince of Darkness, or cults that continue to gather on the grounds. Maybe you will believe the stories too once you have seen what I have seen and visited on Halloween night. Good luck and good night. Hello and welcome. Thank you for stopping by. I have a story today that I heard from a friend. It's called The Bride, where the internet can get a little scary. Apparently it happened to a friend of a friend, or maybe it's just another urban legend. Here's how I remember it being told. One day, a beautiful girl got engaged to a very wealthy man. But she herself was penniless and could not afford to buy herself a wedding dress. Now, this is not an unusual problem these days for most of us, but she had no family to financially help her, and she was far too embarrassed to ask her future husband for help with this, as he was already paying for the wedding and the honeymoon and everything else that came up. So she continued to do what many of us would probably do in her situation. She went onto the internet in search of the perfect wedding gown. She checked every website, every ad, new, used, trades, and she still couldn't find anything within her budget. Just when she was about to give up, her rabbit hole comes to the end, and she finds an ad on the internet with the most beautiful wedding dress, and it's even a price she can afford. The ad said, "Free to the right person." Wow, what a deal. It seems like it was meant to be. Her wedding day finally arrives and she slips on her new dress. Oh my, this dress fits just like a glove. She thinks to herself how magical this wedding day is going to be. After the ceremony, she dances and drinks. Eventually, she starts to feel a little dizzy. As the night goes on, she thinks she may have had a little too much to drink. So she asks her husband to take her back to the hotel room. The next morning, her new husband rolls over to kiss her good morning. But when he touches her face, he feels that she's freezing cold. So he checks her and determines that his new wife is dead. He was devastated, to say the least. But he is entirely dumbfounded when the coroner results come in. It turns out that somebody had stolen that dress from a corpse right before the burial. No one knows how or why. But she was poisoned with embalming fluid. It activated as she sweated, slowly stopping her blood flow throughout the night. Maybe it was a cursed item just for her. Cursed to poison her slowly. No one knows but the coroner for sure. Maybe he was the nice gentleman who sold her that dress in the first place. The moral here is unclear, if there is one at all. Maybe don't get married. Maybe not everyone has good intentions. Sometimes what you don't know can in fact hurt you, or in this case, even kill you. Don't buy off the internet without really researching your products. Beware of the dark web. Funeral homes can be full of messed up people. All I know is one thing is clear. Buyer beware. You never know what you're going to get, and things aren't always as they seem. I hope everyone is doing well. I have a story of terror to share. Sit back, relax, and I will begin. The story I have for you is called Don't Fall Asleep. I heard this story late last year, and I never really thought of everyday life in the same way ever again. One night after work, I headed to the train station to go home like I do every night, when a co-worker shared the following story and jokingly warned me not to fall asleep on the train. So the story goes like this. There was a young girl who worked at a local hospital and took the same train home every day for almost a year, just like clockwork. But this time, she was feeling tired from a long shift and had fallen asleep on the train. By the time she woke up, she realized that she had missed her stop. She woke up at what she thought was the end of the line. She figured that it wasn't a big deal at first, and she would just take another train back to her stop. However, she realized there was no returning train. She waited and waited and waited. She knew she was stranded at this point. She started to panic a little bit. Being alone in a strange place late at night, it was terrifying to her, and it would be to you. She began to call around to see if she could get a ride home from somebody, anybody really. But when she mentioned where she was, nobody heard of this train station and no one could find her. Not even on Google Maps. Not left with many options, she decided to backtrack and walk back up the tracks in the direction she came from, thinking that she would reach the next station soon. She proceeded to call an Uber. They claimed to know exactly where she was, and they said they would be sending an Uber driver right away. She called home to let her family know that she would be back soon and assured them an Uber was on the way. Not too long after she hung up the phone, she saw the driver pull up. She got into the car and was never seen or heard from ever again. The strange part about it is every year on the anniversary of her disappearance, her family and friends will receive a text message or a phone call with her telling them that the Uber driver is on the way and she will be home soon. But when they try to call back the number that the call came from, it is always out of service.